Okay, cool. So thank you for joining us, or me, today to talk about getting growth in interest, leads and sales. Excuse the cough. From safety and or facilities management customers. Always enjoy doing this webinar, and this is the last one I'm going to be doing for a while. I'll tell you why in a minute. So hopefully, if you're on this, you enjoy it and you get the most out of it, and it's a good session for everybody. So who's this for? Let's just check that you're in the right place. This is for you if you fit these two criteria. So firstly, if you are somebody that has a product or a service that you provide or sell into either a health and safety related or a facilities management related buyer. And secondly, if you're interested in learning how to generate more and more consistent interest, leads and sales from those types of people. So if that's for you, then thank you for joining today, and you're very welcome. If it's not for you, if you don't meet those criteria, then you're very welcome to stay and watch, but you perhaps won't get as much out of it as the people that do fit those criteria. So let us know in the chat, just confirm that that is for you, and feel free to give me a bit of an overview of your business in the chat as well, which I will look at, and I'll try and tailor some of the stuff that I'm saying to those that are in attendance. So yeah, give us an overview of who you are, what you do in the chat as well. What are we going to cover today? There's going to be three sections to this. We're going to talk firstly about why it's quite difficult to win business from health and safety and facilities management buyers, why that's a hard thing to do. We're going to talk secondly about a way that I've developed and found that really works very well, which I call the ILS method. And then at the end, I'm going to talk, if you're interested to hear about it, about how you can work with me starting actually this time next week and implement all of the ideas and the concepts and the principles that I'm going to share with you today with me in a small group over 10 weeks, so that at the end of the 10 weeks, you've got this whole model that I use every day working for you in your business. Do get involved in the chat so I can check that everyone's awake and following along. I'm happy to take questions, and there will be a couple of slots for questions specifically, but just fire into the chat if you do have any questions. As I said, there is going to be an offer to consider at the end about working with me. So if there's one thing I've learnt, and I was commenting on, what's the guy's name? I can't think of his name now. Stephen Bartlett, is it? The Diary of a CEO guy. He put a post out yesterday on LinkedIn about learning and developing and all this sort of stuff. And I made this point, which is that what I've learnt is that it's all about the implementation. So you can come to webinars like this, you can read books, you can do courses, you can listen to podcasts, you can watch YouTube videos, but actually it's good to get these new ideas and new concepts, but you sharpen your results in the market, not in your mind, is a saying that somebody said to me before. So it's about implementing this stuff is how it makes things happen. It's no good sitting in your brain and not being done. So implementing this and the concepts I'm going to talk about today, there's an opportunity to work with me on what I call the ILS Success Sprint. And that's a 10-week program where we'll implement this system tweaked for your business. And this will be the second time we've done this. And I'm going to give you a bit of feedback from the first group later. There is a cost to that, and I'll talk about that later. So for those of you that don't know me, my name is Christian Harris. I lead a business called Slip Safety Services. We do what we say on the tin. We make floors safe, and we also get involved in doing deep cleans of hard to clean floors as well. I started the business just coming up for 5 years ago. And when I started, this is what I had when it came to growth, a blank sheet of paper. And so what ended up happening to me was lots and lots of trial and error, lots and lots of time and money invested trying out different things, and I can explain some of those things I tried in a minute. Probably, I would say about 2.5 years ago, I kind of hit my stride and figured out how this stuff all actually works. And I'll give you some insights on that in a minute. But really, I had a couple of years of trial and error, spending money, spending time, opportunity cost. And so one of the objectives for today is to give you guys the ability to not have to have that same trial and error time and cost, because I can share with you what actually does work in these markets. So what did I try? A very wiggly road. I tried everything from marketing agencies, cold emails, LinkedIn agencies, cold calling, SEO. Like I said a minute ago, courses, books, videos, you name it, I've tried it. And I wouldn't say that all of those were a waste of time, because they all gave me some insights and made some progression on things. But what I would say is that this market that I operate in and you operate in, it's slightly different to if you're selling, I don't know, IT services or whatever. There's some unique things about these particular types of people that we need to engage with. And so what I've done is I've kind of pulled bits and bobs from all the things I've done and tried and learned and iterated to get to the point where I am today. So where is that? So it's here. It's having a big following. It's winning awards. It's getting good exposure. It's being invited to speak. It's being quoted by the BBC when people were slipping on the courts at Wimbledon. And it's growing my business in a very consistent way. And I'll share with you some of the numbers about that a little bit later. And this is all thanks to this system that I've developed. So what I've sort of experienced myself, and I see when I speak to people like you and I that are working, selling products and services related to safety and FM, is these 3 challenges. So I'd be interested to hear if any of these resonate with you. First thing is this problem about prospects, the people we want to work with, not knowing who you are or why you can help them. So you kind of feel a bit like a best kept secret. So you've got all this value to offer. You've got these great solutions. You've got these great services or products, but people just don't know who you are. Secondly, and allied to that, you've got no consistent method to actually start conversations with these people. So you might try a bit of this, you might try a bit of that, but you haven't figured out a way of consistently getting new relationships and new conversations into your world, which enables you to explain the value that you've got, so you can kind of continue to be that best kept secret. And therefore you end up with unpredictable and lumpy results. So you might be sitting on a pipeline, but not really be certain about what's going to come in when. You might have a very limited pipeline. It might be very up and down, but all of that means you've got not much certainty. So I've gone through all of those challenges, and when I speak to people, they normally resonate with at least one, often all 3 of those. So let me share an insight with you, and this might help to explain why you feel that way. Why is it difficult to build a relationship and to turn into a customer, a health and safety or a facilities manager or a director? Think of it like this. So imagine being a GP. You're sitting in your office, and every 20 minutes somebody else walks into the room, and you have no idea what symptoms they're going to present themselves with. You're just sitting there with an open mind, and the door opens, and they start telling you about what's wrong with them, and you have to. Hey Jay, thanks for joining on LinkedIn, watching on LinkedIn. And you have to diagnose their problems. So because you don't know what's coming, and because it could literally be anything under the sun, you as a GP have to have huge breadth of knowledge. You have to be able to diagnose all sorts of issues. Compare that to being a surgeon. So if you're a surgeon, you're very, very specialist. You only work on one area, you only do one thing, and you just go deep in your knowledge of that specific vocation. So a doctor, a GP, has to be mile wide in their knowledge, but therefore, because they're mile wide, they can only ever be, on average, inch deep. And that is the challenge for a facilities management professional or a safety or risk management professional. They have to have a huge breadth of knowledge, but therefore they can't be an expert in every single area. Compare that to the surgeon, where they're an inch wide and a mile deep. And I always use this analogy talking about my business when it comes to slip and fall prevention. We very much are inch wide because that's all we do, but we're a mile deep. We're real experts, specialists when it comes to that area. Now, the GP loves the surgeon because the GP knows that they cannot solve every single problem that comes to them. And if there's a problem of a certain type, they're going to need to refer that to a surgeon. So if they can build that relationship with a surgeon, the surgeon does the work to solve these problems for their patients. They're going to love working with that surgeon because it helps them to solve a problem. And so what you need to think about is this analogy in the context of your business. So the GP is the safety or FM professional that you're seeking to help, and you are the surgeon that has the specialist skills, knowledge, expertise, products, services that can help them. And if you approach this from that mindset of understanding the challenges and the complexities of that person, you've got to position yourself in a way that you can fit that surgeon role. So you're not calling them up and trying to sell them something. You're working with them in a partnership and supporting them to achieve objectives that they need to achieve. So hopefully that's kind of resonated a bit. Let me know your thoughts on that analogy in the chat if that works for you. But that to me helps to explain a lot about some of the challenges of trying to develop business in these areas. So what do we need to do if we want to grow our business in a safety or FM related organization? I would say there are 3 keys to success. The first thing is to be positioned as and perceived as the obvious and go-to choice. So you don't want to be the sort of middle of the pack surgeon. You want to be the top surgeon that's known for solving this problem in the best possible way. So if you can get that positioning and that perception right, that brings you a long way. That helps people to get to know you. Secondly, we need to bear in mind that relationship GP to surgeon, and we need to create an elegant and simple series of logical next steps for the buyer. So we don't want any pushy sales tactics. We want to be developing a relationship, building a partnership, and making it just a very concise, straightforward series of simple logical next steps. And then thirdly, we need to build that into a systemized and predictable process. I would call this an asset, a business asset, that produces those results again and again and again. So if you imagine sitting here today versus sitting here in a year's time, let's say, and you ticked off all 3 of those things, do you think that your business would be in a better place than it is now? I would suggest that it would be in a much, much better place. So these are the 3 objectives that we need to reach. So is there a way to achieve those 3 outcomes? And that's the bulk of what we're going to talk about today, which is this model, this method that I've developed over the years called the ILS method. So there are 3 parts to that process of logical next steps. There's capturing interest, there's generating leads, and there's closing sales. And there are 9 drivers of that method, which I'm going to explain to you now. And this is what we're going to be implementing in people's businesses over the next 10 weeks in the sprint. So let's start with interest. Everything is downstream from attention. So you're never going to get where you need to go if you can't get the attention of the right types of people, because if you don't have their attention, they're never going to be able to consider what it is that you do and who you are and how you can help them, and therefore they're never going to buy. So the first thing we've got to do is figure out a way consistently and in a scalable way to get attention and interest. So the first way of doing this, let me just turn. Thanks for joining, Ian. Oh, you're on mute. That's okay. Cool. The first thing we need to do is think about profile. So 2 parts to this. There's who, which is who is it that we're trying to speak with? Who are our ideal customers? What is it about them demographically? What is it about them psychographically that we can get to understand so that we can really closely identify who it is that we want to start having the attention of and start building relationships with. So we need to understand in as much detail as possible who it is we want to work with. Psychographic indicators are really useful. So I'll give you an analogy for me in my business. There's no point me trying to develop relationships with people who don't believe that prevention of accidents is better than cure, because they're not going to buy into the preventative approach that we have. So I could identify somebody based on their location, their job title, their sector, all the demographic stuff. But actually, I need to go that level deeper and try to get under the skin of how they're thinking and how they behave and act into the psychographic. And that limits down the market, the total addressable market. But that's good, because then we're really focused. The second part of profile is you. So who and then you. So you, as I said before, need to be positioned as the obvious choice. What do we mean by that? We mean that wherever these ideal people are, that they could find you, you need to make sure that you're showing up in such a way that you come across as the obvious choice to help them with the specific problem that you can help them to solve. So yes, I mean on LinkedIn, but I also mean, what does Google say about you? I mean, what does your website come across as? What does the collateral look like that you've got, like your brochures and things like that? This all needs to be focused on the customer. So the who and the you. Once we know that, and we've got those things in place, the next step is to start producing content. And again, I'm not just talking about LinkedIn posts. I'm talking about social media. I'm talking about webinars. I'm talking about articles. I'm talking about brochures. I'm talking about any type of communication with the outside world. What's so good about content? It's a great way to develop a relationship, because people can see you again and again and again, and they can start to know, like, and trust you. And if you can achieve know, like, trust, then people are going to be open to talking. What we're not going to do from content, I would suggest, and it does work in some markets, but I wouldn't say we're going to go from content into trying to sell something. We're just using content to open the door into a conversation. I talk about know, like, and trust because those are the 3 pillars of content. So you need to have content that enables people to know who you are and what you do and what you stand for. You need a second type of content which enables people to hopefully get to like you a bit, but also feel as if you like them. And that's actually more important. So in other words, we're giving value, valuable information, valuable resources. And then we need to build content that enables people to trust. So expertise, case studies, customer outcomes, insights, stories that resonate because they capture how the potential prospect is feeling, are all things that will develop trust. And I sort of sandwich these up along with some other types of content when it comes to the type of content that I'm putting out into the world. So I have a schedule of content. I have different categories of content. I put different content out across all sorts of platforms, and this is just on social media. So you can just get a sense for that there's a way to structure this and automate it. And just to give you an idea, just on LinkedIn, I normally get just under 3 million impressions a year. So across all channels, well above 3 million. So that's 3 million advertising boards, 3 million people that are seeing at least something about me and what we do and the value we can add. And so that's 3 million potential conversations that we could start. The next thing to get people's attention is don't just sit there and wait for them to come to you. You need to be coming out to them. So we don't mean by that doing what lots of people do on LinkedIn and sending out these ridiculous long wordy sales pitches. What we mean is helping, inviting, teaching, learning about them, being curious, because nobody likes to be sold to. One method of doing that is something that I call finding the red apple. So bear with me here. Imagine you're an apple and you're a green apple, and you go out to the pub and you are having a pint with, or a restaurant, and you're having a drink or whatever with your friends who are all also green apples, and you've invited someone else along to join you, and they're a bit late, and you're all sitting around the table, and then all of a sudden this red apple comes and sits down at the table when you were expecting them to be green. What are you going to talk to that apple about? You're going to talk to them about being red, because that's unique, it's interesting, it stands out. They have no option but to answer questions about being red because it's so obvious. And the key to outreach, in my experience, is trying to find the red apple about whoever it is you want to talk to. So we've all got something that we've achieved or is unique about us or is special about us that stands out and is something that if you can ask a question in the right kind of way, elegantly crafted, we can't help but answer that question, and then we're into the conversation. So that's the three elements of driving interest. Next, we need to try and generate some leads. So we can start having conversations and relationships, but we need to figure out which of these people could be leads for our business, because we're all here to make money at the end of the day, right? And I've got three methods of doing this, which to me are all about offering light bulb moments and allowing people to kind of self-select as a potential lead. So again, nothing pushy. We're sort of pulling rather than pushing. Logical, simple next steps. But these three methods work really well for this type of audience to generate some leads. So the first one is a survey. So a survey is something that you can do on a low frequency but a high volume. So for example, last summer, I did a survey of health and safety leaders. I got about 350 people who did this survey over a month. And of those, there were a number of leads because I was able to include some questions to allow people to potentially raise their hand and say, yeah, there could be some interest here in working together. So we can use surveys to understand some of the psychographic stuff around our prospects better, and we can include certain questions to allow people just to sort of raise their hand. So for example, for me, if I'm doing a survey about health and safety, you can bet your bottom dollar I'm going to include a question somewhere about when was the last time you had a slip test. So a survey is a great way of getting a lot of data, getting lots of insights. You can repurpose and repackage those insights into reports, and then you can run events about them and write articles about them and all this sort of stuff. So you get a lot of additional benefits as well. But this is a high volume way, low frequency way of generating leads from those conversations that you're having. Next, we come to something which is a medium frequency, medium volume, which is events. There's a picture of a mirror because you're all on an event, and therefore that's proof that events do work because you've signed up for one. Why do they work? Because they are an absolutely perfect, simple, logical next step. If you can come up with a name of an event that will resonate with somebody, and they've kind of got that problem or they've got that ambition, then they're going to come to the event because there's a very low barrier to entry. There's no real commitment from them, but they can get a lot of value from it. From your perspective, it enables you to build relationships on a one-to-many level. So we've got sort of 20 odd people watching this now. So I'm having one conversation, but talking to 20 people rather than 20 conversations speaking to one person. And the type of events that work well to start with are just Q&A sessions. So, for example, in November, I did a Slips, Trips, Falls, Ask Me Anything open Q&A, and I got about, 30 or 40 people signed up and joined me on a Zoom session like this, and I literally just did a Q&A. Anybody that attends that event clearly has an interest in Slips, Trips, and Falls, otherwise they wouldn't be there, and therefore they're demonstrating that they could be a lead because they could help, that they could do with the help that my business can provide. So events are medium frequency because you can do them pretty regularly, and a medium volume. Now, when you start off with these, you might get 2 people or 3 people or 5 people or whatever. You never know. You might get 100 people. Don't worry too much about the numbers. Just think of the fact that you're building these relationships with more people. And think of it this way. If you had a group of 10 people and 5 of them had been on a webinar with you for 45 minutes where you had answered questions and demonstrated your expertise, and 5 of them hadn't, which of the 5 are more likely to end up being customers? In my mind, absolutely, it's the ones that have spent a bit of time with you on a human level, albeit it's virtual, and got to know you more. And then the last one that I love is a diagnostic. So this is a high frequency because you can have it and set it up and it's always on, but you're going to get a lower volume, in my experience, of leads coming through this way. So I've got one of these for my slip safety services business. It's called the Slip Prevention Scorecard. And basically it's a self-assessment diagnostic tool where somebody would log on, answer 30 questions. It takes about 3 minutes. And then at the end of it, they get a report with some scores like you can see on the screen. So the beauty of this is that they're giving the answers and therefore they can't quibble with the data. So take this guy here, Jonathan. If I'd called Jonathan up or sent him an email and said, Jonathan, most people in your type of business, when it comes to slips and falls, of the 6 areas that contribute to slips and falls, they struggle the most with surface. So I would recommend that you get some slip testing because you might have a problem with your floor. How's he going to react to that? Versus, we influence him to take this scorecard, he fills in the results and answers the questions honestly, and he gets the feedback, and he can see for himself that actually he's scoring overall quite well, but his biggest area for improvement is in surface, which means the floor. Clearly the second one is going to give much more comfort to him, and he's going to be much more open to talking. So this is a fantastic way of enabling your network, your relationships, your prospects to basically to self-select and figure out for themselves whether they may have a problem that you could help them with. And there is a diagnostic for ILS as well, which is at safetyandfmgrowthquiz.scoreapp.com. So if you're interested in having a go at one of these, that's the place to go, safetyandfmgrowthquiz.scoreapp.com. So we've captured interest from the right sorts of people. We've delivered them with some insights and some light bulb moments, which has enabled them to self-select as being a lead and have a potential need for what it is that we do. And now we move into the kind of sales bit at the end where we want to try and close these deals because, that's why we're in business. And I always say this, real artists ship. So sales is important. Sales is often sort of derided or looked down upon a bit, but I think to me, sales is really important. It's a profession. It's something that we should deal with in the same way as we do other aspects of business. So 3 key aspects to sales. Firstly, following up. So if we've put in the work to capture people's attention, if we've then enticed them to do something, take an action where they have self-selected and identified themselves as a lead, then we owe it to them and we owe it to ourselves to follow up with them and the fortune is in the follow-up. So there's some data here on the screen where almost half of people give up after the first contact, but 80% of sales are made after 5+ contacts. So you owe it to yourself to put the legwork in and follow these people up. If you don't, they're not going to come to you in many cases. So the first bit of the wheel was almost a bit of a waste of time. So you've got to be doing some following up. And we talk in the training and in the sprint about ways and means of doing that in a nice way that isn't too pushy or salesy. Next is a taster product. So I'm a huge fan of having a taster product. What do I mean by that? I mean that, let's say your average sale is £10,000. To go from 0 to £10,000 is quite a big jump. But if you could sandwich in between 0 and 10,000 something that was relatively low value, but was low value in terms of the cost, but was high value in terms of the outcomes it gives to the customer, that is, again, a simple, logical next step, then you're going to find it much easier to go from 0 to 500 or 1,000 than from 0 to 10,000. And then taking it a step further, it's much, much easier to go from 500 or 1,000 to 10,000. So figuring out something that you can include in your sort of product ecosystem that is a taster product is really, really beneficial. So in the slip safety services business, we have a slip test that fills this kind of role. So it costs £500, whereas our core product might be £5,000 or more, our core service. That's an amount that's simple to say yes to. But crucially, by going and doing this testing, we give a lot of value to the client. So they get some scientific measurement of their flaws. They get some insights about where they may be having problems. They get a nice, professional and thorough bespoke report. It builds the relationship so we can figure out whether we want to work with them, and they can figure out whether they believe we can help them and they want to work with us. So it works well to build that relationship. And really importantly, it gets us on their payment system as well, because sometimes getting onto payment systems is a nightmare. So I really encourage you to think about having a taster product you could build into your business, and that will help you to accelerate sales at the back end of this relationship building cycle. So again, for ILS, I do a LinkedIn profile review for 10 quid. And the last thing I want to talk today about is energy. So this actually does apply to all sections of this method, but I leave it to the end because it's particularly important at this last point where we're trying to close off these sales. So I'm going to check that people are still awake. Let me know in the chat, do you like to be sold to? Yes or no? I'm going to assume the answer because I know the answer, but yes or no in the chat, do you like to be sold to? No, 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 no. But what about this? Do you enjoy buying things that you want to buy? So there's a difference between being sold to and buying. So for me, I enjoy buying cases of wine, I enjoy buying holidays, I enjoy buying blazers, shirts, things like that. And I personally thoroughly enjoy that process of going to buy the things that I want to buy. So let me know in the chat with an indeed or a nope, just so we can tell the difference between yes or no. And even without looking, I can tell you that people enjoy buying. Yeah, Paul, you're right. You enjoy buying, but you don't enjoy being sold to. James, I will send you the links for the scorecard, yeah. So people don't enjoy being sold to, but they enjoy buying. Think back to the GP. The GP doesn't want to be sold to, but they enjoy referring on to the surgeon. So we've got to have this in our mind all the time. And there are two other points that we need to have in our mind as well when it comes to kind of the energy and the attitude that we put into this whole process. So the first one I would encourage you to think about is, imagine that you had 10 million quid in the bank, and you were set for life financially, and you were doing your job just solely out of the joy of doing it, and because you believed in what it is that you do and that you can help people and add lots of value and so on and so forth. Now imagine if you were in that position and you were getting challenging situations, difficult questions from customers or prospects, and how you would react in those situations versus if you were in what maybe is more likely to be the reality of you need this sale because you've got a budget to hit and you've got bills to pay and all this kind of stuff. So if you can be in the mindset of making yourself deal with situations as if you were in that financially secure position, that gives you a huge amount of freedom, and it stops you coming across as needy. It stops you coming across as salesy. It makes you come across as if you just really want to help this person, and you have kind of this with or without your energy. So you're up to some cool stuff in the world. It's going to happen anyway. You're on this cool journey, and if they want to come along for the ride, then that's great. And if they don't, then that's also great. And that having that sort of energy come across to your client gives you a huge amount of power and a huge amount of ability to close more sales. So that's one thing. I'm just going to have a quick sip of my drink. And then the other thing I would want you to bear in mind is cancer. So I've gone from a big pile of money to cancer. Imagine if you were sleeping and you're in a deep sleep and you started having this really vivid dream where somehow, some way, you figured out the cure for cancer, and you woke up in the middle of the night in a cold sweat and you remembered it so vividly, you scribbled it all down on a piece of paper, and then you went back to sleep and slept like a baby, and then in the morning you woke up with the cure for cancer sitting on your bedside table. What would you do if you had the cure for cancer? You would stand on the rooftops with the biggest megaphone you can find, and you would shout about it, and you would be proactive about it, and you would try and get that cure into the hands of as many people as possible that could benefit from it. And you need to think of your business and whatever it is that you do as if in your little area, your little surgeon's inch wide, mile deep niche, that you've got the cure for cancer. So you need to have this positivity about what you're doing, and the fact that you're doing it because it helps people, it adds value, and it's really important. And again, if you have that mindset, that comes across because you're up to some cool stuff. You're not just trying to sell stuff to make money. So think about that, those three things around energy, and that's how you can kind of close off this loop and really get some of these deals across the line. So to summarize the method, ILS, interest lead sales, it's an end-to-end system. It's predictable, it's repeatable, it's pretty much hands-off. So most of this stuff happens without my personal involvement now, and therefore it's scalable, and it works for safety and FM related businesses, because it's what I do in my business, and I'm selling to safety and FM people basically all the time. It may well work for other businesses as well. I'm sure it probably does, but I couldn't sit here hand on heart and tell you that it would work for other businesses. Again, if you're interested in seeing how you're doing on ILS at the moment, you can take the scorecard, safetyandfmgrowthquiz.scoreapp.com. So that's the summary of the method. So why do we need leads? And what's your number? So just imagine I could wave a magic wand and give you 10 leads per week. And think about these numbers and what that would equate to for business. And let me know in the chat how many leads, do this maths with me, and let me know how many leads you reckon you need a week to generate a sort of meaningful amount of business every year. So let's say from 10 leads, and these numbers will be unique to everybody, but let's say you from 10 leads could have 5 sales conversations. And of those 5 sales conversations, you have 2 wins. So you have a close rate of sort of 40%. and let's say your average sale is 2.5K. So every week you have 10 leads, 5 sales conversations, 2 wins times 2.5K times 50 weeks a year, and that's 250K of business. So 10 leads a week over 50 weeks of the year, using these numbers, is worth 250K of revenue. So do the maths and see how many leads you think you might need based on your average sale and your close rates and your conversations to leads rates. How many leads you might need a week to make a sort of meaningful improvement in your business. And if you're brave, share it in the chat. The beauty of this ILS method, certainly for me, is that it produces lots and lots of leads per week very, very easily. So doing all of this stuff, I get in excess of 50 leads per week. So that's 50 potential conversations, potential sales conversations that we have. Not all of those leads end up having a sales conversation or buying, of course, because you never get 100%. But, do you think that if you could get 50 leads a week, that would make a big difference to you and your business? If so, type in 100% in the chat, and then we know where you're at. But 50 leads per week is very much possible with this method. Quickly, I just wanted to touch on something that a few people have asked me about, which is why am I doing this webinar and why am I doing this work with ILS? Because don't I have a business to run? And of course, I absolutely do have a business to run. So there's 4 reasons that I'm doing this. One is because it's a question that crops up again and again and again, and I always get people coming to me, seeing the stuff that I'm doing, and asking me how I'm doing it and how it's working and how could they improve and all this sort of stuff. So I do believe that this is something that's needed and it's something that's valuable. If you've ever seen me talk about slips before, I'm a real geek about slips and I'm a real geek about safety, but I'm also a real passionate geek about this topic as well. So I love talking about marketing and business growth and lead generation and all this kind of stuff. So I've aligned a need with a passion that I have. And my mission in life is around reducing the number of slips and falls in the world by 500,000 a year. That's kind of the mission that I'm on. And I can't do that on my own. So in my business, I do webinars and I do articles and I do resources and all this sort of kind of stuff to try and educate the world that there are things they can do to reduce the risk of slips and make the world basically a cleaner, safer, more environmentally friendly, nicer, better place to be in. So to my mind, if I'm sharing insights with you guys about how to build your businesses because you're also helping to make the world a safer, cleaner, greener, nicer place, then to me, that sort of fits in with my mission and my vision for the world. And then lastly, it allows me, because I do, as I said at the start, charge for helping people to implement this stuff, that enables me to earn some money personally without having to pay myself more through my business. And so that enables me to grow my business. So kind of there's a big circle there. So this is why I'm doing this, really. So if you've got any questions, feel free to fire them into the chat, and I'll pick those up as we go. And that's kind of the explanation of the ILS method and how it all works and some of the insights and backgrounds to it. If you're happy for me to do so, I'd love to now just spend a few minutes, sort of 10 minutes, maybe 5-10 minutes, explaining how the ILS success sprint works, which is how we can implement this together over the next 10 weeks. Who's not muted? Just pop James on mute. So let me know. I mean, if you're not interested in that, then of course feel free to log off. But I'll kind of assume that everybody's happy for me to dive into that. So how does it work? basically, it starts a week today. It's the first thing to say. So we're starting 2 o'clock sharp next Friday. It's me working with a small group of business leaders to implement all of the entirety of that ILS method in their businesses over 10 weeks. So we have a weekly group call where I deliver the training and go deep into all of these areas, share the methodologies, the templates, the software, and all of this kind of stuff. And it enables you to build over that 10 weeks your own version of the ILS method. So by the end of it, you've got a fully functioning lead generation system. What we do is we spend a week on each of those 9 areas that I quickly ran through with you so far. And then we have a bit of a wrap up at the end. And what we found in the first cohort of this, which was last sort of Q4 last year, was these 4 trend lines. So we saw an immediate uplift in kind of connections and followers. Lagging behind that was engagement. Then we started seeing leads coming through on a consistent basis, and then obviously sales. And the hope, the desire, what I try and put everything into with everybody that does this is that by the end of the 10 weeks, we've got that first sale or 2 from this methodology, so that you've covered the cost of the course in that 10 weeks. So that's the ambition, is to recover your cost within the 10-week period. But then obviously you've then got this system up and running, and it runs on, and it continues to deliver for you over the long term. A couple of people that did this last year: Satish, who's got a business in health and safety that helps with HAVs and hearing loss, and Russell, who works in more in facilities management and cleaning, selling cleaning equipment and things like that. Couple of the people that did the course last year and worked with me, and they're sort of benefiting from that now coming into 2023. Any questions, let me know, other than obviously how much it cost, but any questions, let me know. Chat, it's there, cool. I've lost my good stuff. So if you're interested, if that floats your boat, and you'd like to join us, here's how it works in terms of the investment. So what you get is the 10-week sprint, the Zoom, the WhatsApp group, all of the details of how to implement this stuff, the models, the templates, the systems, the software, my help. We do some delegation in terms of VAs as well, so you're not actually physically doing all this stuff. And basically, I would promise to do my absolute best for everybody that joins to try to get their money back from this in the first 10 weeks, and then lay the foundations for the future. We, looking around, similar sorts of things that are less focused normally go for about 3K. We're not doing that because, as I say, this isn't my main line of income or anything like that. So we're offering this at basically half of that, which is 1495 for this second group. So I guess to sum up, I would be asking myself, if I were in your shoes, these questions. Do you want more business? Could you see how this method could work for you? If you could, do you want to implement it quickly and with certainty, rather than doing the trial and error and trying to do it for yourself and spending a year and potentially never getting there in the first place? And then I suppose, would the investment of $14.95 be recoverable quickly for you, bearing in mind your average sales value and the lead times that you typically have? You know, if you sell a product that's £10 and it takes you a year to sell it on average, then this probably wouldn't be for you. But if you've got a service or a product that is, you know, anywhere more than, say, £500, then I would say that probably a good chance that we could sell more than 3 of those in 10 weeks, and therefore get your investment back quickly. So if you tick those boxes, then I would recommend having a call with me after this, and we can talk about whether you want to join and whether you fit the bill to get involved, and let's work together. If not, then hopefully at very least you've enjoyed today and you've learned something. and got some value from it. I did say in my LinkedIn post, if you joined today and you didn't like it, let me know and I will post about it to my 26,000 followers. So if anybody really didn't enjoy this or find anything useful, then let me know. That we've got 2 slots left. So if you think this could be of interest, if it's worth a chat, let me know in the chat. Just type in interested, or feel free to DM me or email me or whatever. Anybody who's on the Zoom, I'll follow up with. Anybody who's commented on LinkedIn, I'll follow up with individually as well, and just see if it's worth a call. But yeah, there's a couple of slots left, and we're starting next week. So that's it from me. Just all that remains to be said really is I hope that you've enjoyed this session and got something from it today. As it says here, whether you work with me or not, and I recommend that if you can say yes to those questions, then we should work together. Hopefully it's helped you to feel that it's definitely more than possible to achieve confidence about interest, leads and sales, consistency in getting interest, leads and sales, and the certainty that growth is possible and achievable for your business. So thank you very much. What I'm going to do is I'm going to stop the live stream. So those of you on LinkedIn, thank you. Drop your comments in and I'll come back to you.